up front or on the school's website. Let's see. We can rise and, that's the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record indicate that Chair Addy is not here today, otherwise we have 6. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Is there any additions to the agenda?
No additions. There is one on the consent. It's a small edit, 5.9. It should read approval of hire of fall coaches and volunteers. I think the and volunteers is left off, so minor edit. Otherwise, it's good as presented.
I'll make a motion, we accept it with that one change or addition.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 3.1, visitor input. We didn't have anybody sign up to speak. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Okay, moving on. 4.1, Kraus Anderson.
We should move that to the end of the agenda.
Ouch, that must have been a bad tour.
It was a great
tour.
Thanks for taking some time with us today. This is not your quarterly report, which you'll get in September, which will be our final. Maybe not our final, but real close. 3 things that we are wrapping up right now. One is the North Star School, which you toured tonight. I think you see that it's pretty close to completion. We are on track to be ready for the ribbon cutting, and that is awesome. The demo of Gilbert is pretty well wrapped up cost-wise, so we've got those items taken care of. And then the district admin building, we're almost done, but we keep moving the goalposts because some things had changed there with ALP moving in this building, so we had additional scope there. The intent tonight is to go through these little things very quickly that were added along the way, and for good reason. And please stop us and ask any questions about, well, why did you have to patch those walls, and why did you have to do this or that? If you can do that when we're going through the photos, otherwise we're just going to keep moving to try to move this along. But it's to answer the question up front, why do you need an amendment number 15 for Kraus Anderson? We're going to answer that question, then we're going to show you the numbers, and then we're going to ask for your approval tonight if that works with you. So on the agenda, first of all, go ahead.
Yeah. Most of you know me, but just a little refresher because we do have some new faces. Pete Abatement, project manager. I did the Laurentian Elementary and now wrapping up the North.
I'm Garrett Johnson. I'm project engineer intern for my second summer here.
And I'm Chelsea Krills, project engineer. I've been working on your demo projects in Gilbert and Eveleth, as well as a part of the high school project and here at the Phase 2 Mechanical.
And Garrett's been helping us take care of a lot of the miscellaneous additions and added scopes of work, so he's been doing a great job this summer.
And if you don't know me, I'm Patrick Gallagher, the senior project manager that's been here for about 5 years working with the whole team, so really appreciate working with you all. Our agenda, we'll go through North Star first, then some high school items. We had an 11-month walkthrough like we had told you in one of the quarterly updates. We did do that, and we've gone through and repaired several things there that were on the warranty list. Not to be confused with added scope items that we've done at the high school. Some of those items that we'll get into and show you some pictures of improvements that after you live in a school building for about a year, Principal Winter there can tell you there's some things that you want to improve on, like divide up some classrooms, that type of thing. So we'll go through that. Eveleth Demolition, You know that that changed in scope here at Midway because of the leaving of one structure there, but we're in a good place there. Gilbert just wrapped up, mechanical 2 like I talked about, and then we'll go, how does this affect the overall budget? What do you have left after all of these changes have happened? As of today, what is left in your funds available for future projects? So that's our plan to go through tonight. And then ask for your approval of Amendment 15, which is just the Kraus-Anderson portion of that. So, all right.
All right, we'll start off with some of the added stuff over at North Star. For those of you that came on the tour, I think I talked about these, the corner offices. So it looks pretty close to what we had there on site. And these offices were added for changing up some of the programming and some of the special staff that's needed for speech or some special ed, that kind of thing. So, any questions on that one? Another big one over there, as you saw, or if you drove around the school when you were there, all the new blacktop around. So on the north side of the school, 2nd Street, and on the south end of the school property is 4th Street, and then you have 5th and 6th Avenue on either side, the west and east side. So the city paid for the majority of that work, but the school district did put some funds in that improvement as well. So it's making the neighbors very happy. So that's a good sign.
So, some of that wear was there before, which is why the city paid for that portion. Some of it was due to the steam line rework. That's why they paid for that. But some of it was due to the construction, just the wearing of the street with all the trucks that we ran for both demolition and construction. So pretty fair collaborative cost savings to get you new bituminous almost all the way around.
Another improvement, some adjustable hoops. We discussed those when we were there. So that's for the side courts. So they can lower down to 8 feet for the younger kids in tournaments and that kind of thing. The main court is staying at the 10-foot height, no adjustables on those. And then another thing is doing some maintenance on the hoops. I talked about that on the tour, some new cables and belts. It's just time to do them. They've been there a long time, it's probably since '89. And then we're gonna do bleacher certification as well. So working with Larson Engineering out of Minneapolis, they can come up and recertify the bleachers, which is a requirement. So we're working through all that.
And those are existing bleachers, right?
Yes. And Garrett's gonna take over and talk about some Rockridge High School stuff.
So we're at the Rockridge High School, kind of like Pat had mentioned. After a year of school, there's areas that you want to break up. These are on the first floor. There's 2 of them on the north and south wing. These are going to be makerspace storefronts. So this includes a new aluminum framing and glass, as well as a 4-foot door and a transom panel on top. Then here in the flex learning rooms, we have added sliding doors. This includes a new partition wall, embedded floor track, rammed floor to track, new sliding acoustic doors that have not yet been installed, and patch carpet. These are going to allow the classroom to still be one classroom, one continuous classroom, or you can shut the doors and break off and have 2 classrooms or 2 separate learning areas. There's an additional stairwell graphic. Here's one of the warranty items. This is the warranty replacement doors. So we had to paint and install 14 new doors and hardware under warranty. The original doors did not work due to unanticipated high traffic, so we upgraded the door with continuous hinges and heavy-duty hardware.
So that, normally a separation door like this, you can see, I hit it with a laser there where the wall mounts are. Usually these doors are locked in an open position and they stay that way. The only time they're released is if the fire alarm is hit or if you do a lockdown. Given that, that's how the hardware and the doors were designed and installed. What we're finding is because you have so many activities in the high school, you need to segregate different parts of the high school. So every day you're opening and closing these doors a lot more, and they're very heavy doors because they're a firewall. So that hardware was not able to withstand that much use, but the provider of the doors, Northern Door and Hardware, really came to the party on this and got their manufacturers to go to the competitor to get the right hardware that was rated for a firewall and make that right and paint the doors. So you didn't pay for any of that. We just wanted to point it out to you because it was quite a lot of work to replace all those doors, and you might have heard of that from some people that were out there. So, well done by Northern Door.
And here we have another warranty item. The Core 10 panel to the south side of the main entry door was peeling away, chipping away due to the direct sunlight coming through there. We went through the process of figuring out what the best solution was going to be for this, and we ended up scraping off that finish layer, sanding it down, and then tried a couple different colors of paint to see which one would match, and this was the final product of what we found that matched the best.
Pat, about that Core 10,
Yes.
didn't we end up putting thinner Core 10 than originally planned?
No, that panel, the issue we had is Core 10 usually rusts, right? The whole idea is that it rusts like the outside panels on your building. But when you put it on an interior application, it doesn't get enough moisture to rust. So then we took that panel and sprayed it with a material at a shop to get it to rust. The issue is, it looked really good. We get it out here for about 6 to 8 months of the sun beating on it, and that rust peeled off. And that was our issue. It's only in that one area by the east windows. The other panels are holding up fine.
And they're all on the outside, the exterior?
No, the other one's on the inside. So when you go to over the west wall, you'll see that they're floor to ceiling over there on each side right by the windows. But they don't get the direct sun over on the west side like the east side does. So we just repaired that one area. We're watching the other ones, and we did Garrett actually put together a summary of the type of paint and the prep that we did. So if it becomes an issue after the warranty here, the maintenance crew could do it pretty easily. So,
But again, did we not use a thinner Core 10 than was originally planned?
in the interior, I don't think so.
I mean, exterior, interior, whatever. Isn't that thinner?
No, and this is interior only. Not that I remember, but I could go back and look. But
What about the exterior?
I don't think so. And that would not be affecting this. The thickness is not the issue. This is strictly a surface.
All right, thank you, Garrett. Moving on now to the Evelith demolition project. So as we're severing the Evelith new gym and fine arts building from the other buildings that are going to be demoed, we've taken more precautions. So you can see what we've highlighted here in these circles. This is the new gym and fine arts building on the left of the photo here, and we're actually standing on the roof of that building in the right-hand photo. So you can see this area, we had to do selective demo so that we can carefully disconnect that skywalk without damaging the building. This is kind of step one. Step two, and it's completely taken down now. And you can see that we've done kind of a temporary enclosure over that doorway. So what you can see up top here is this is where that skyway did meet. There was a lot of disconnections that happened underneath. That skyway acted as a chase for a lot of utilities. There were sprinkler lines, fire alarm, plumbing, things like that were traveling through there. So those were all disconnected and capped. And then we've put together this temp wall, and we've enclosed it, insulated it, and it is now covered and painted, has caulking around it, so it's well sealed. On the inside, the doors have been padlocked, so you can't open them and push on that temporary enclosure for safety reasons. And you can see kind of on the far corner here, this is what it looks like right now. It is painted, so that's the temporary enclosure there. This is the area that was underneath that skywalk. So to preserve the tennis courts, as the city has requested, we had to take some extra measures to make sure that we didn't undermine and lose this area as we're excavating around. So we took out the top 2 layers of this retaining wall, and the columns that were supporting that skywalk had to be removed. So those have also been cut out, and the sidewalk below you can see has been removed. So this is kind of looking the other direction. This is looking to the south, but you can see the sidewalk is taken out. This picture, it might be a little hard to see, but there's actually a storm drain there, and that used to be in the sidewalk. So we will actually have to raise that up to the ground level. That will be much closer to the height of this tennis court before we're done. So just pause for 1 second. Those 2 items,
you will not pay for those. Those initially you'll pay for, but then those dollar amounts are all being tracked separately so that you can increase the cost of the land sale by that same amount. That was the agreement with the city, correct, Dr. Schmidt? So we're just showing you that as a couple of items that is going to add up to that dollar amount that we'll bring to you at the next meeting.
What about the other side of the building that goes to the Franklin? That's still there, isn't it?
Right. Real similar temporary enclosure that you just showed you on this side is what we'll do on the other
Do you
side.
have an estimated cost for that?
Well, all of this is being tracked separately. It's that $600,000 that the city agreed to. It would be something less than that, and we're tracking it within that 600,000. We haven't done that work yet.
So that will be an addition, additional costs.
It'll be within the
Within the
600,000.
600?
Yeah, and that will be a one-for-one reimbursement to the district. So if we only spent $150,000, then your $500,000 land sale will be $650,000. So it is not something that you'll pay for.
And Cross Anderson is doing the work. We didn't post and advertise and bid that out, that work?
It is a part of the demolition accommodations,
So the
so you
demo
really
company.
couldn't separate it liability-wise, no.
And the contractors we have on site, Rachel's been involved in that. Rachel contracted us the demo to removing the columns and the things out there. All right, over in Gilbert. So as Patrick has stated, the project is now done, but some updates of what we found. We did have additional below-grade abatement in 4 separate locations. The largest one of those will be at your tennis courts. We'll go over that one in the next slide. Otherwise, there were 3 other areas, pretty much all pipe insulation that was located underground. That was all removed, abated, and tested. Looking at the tennis courts. So this was the big one, and the reason for it is there were multiple layers of bituminous or asphalt pavement here. You can see we had almost 11-inch thickness, so it was a lot more material that had to be taken out. And to do that, because it tested positive for asbestos, you had to have lined trucks. Lined trucks or lined dumpsters. Dumpsters are smaller, so we'd have had to have a lot more of them, would have been more money. So we went with this gantry system that you'll see here, kind of an erected scaffold. And the purpose of that is these trucks then can drive up alongside of that. There's a worker who's harnessed and tied off onto that system inside the truck, laying that plastic out. The truck then drives over to the tennis courts, they fill it with material, comes back around, and they wrap it up like a burrito, tape it, seal it shut so it can go off to the landfill or the proper disposal place. So a larger procedure that happened there because it was asbestos-containing surfacing that was on that tennis court. And then here you can see, along with that, anytime we have abatement, we have air monitoring and things in place as well. Now looking at those tennis courts, everything's been abated, seating is completed. This picture kind of shows too, there used to be a fence along here that was tied in with the neighbors, so extra precautions were taken. But you have a really nice looking site there right now. Over on, it would be kind of the south side on New Jersey Avenue, there was an area that was very heavily damaged just by the number of trucks. Again, those trucks that we just showed, they had to drive through twice, once to get lined, a second time to get wrapped, and along with all of the infill that was pulling into the site kind of in this area here you can't quite see. So this area was patched and paved to repair that damaged spot.
And Wade Ingebrigtsen, our superintendent, worked really closely with the city. I believe they're very happy with how we left the site. And by we, I mean the school district as a whole. So I think we still have a good relationship with the city there on this project. Because whenever you do demolition, whenever you've got a lot of trucks running, you can run into some pretty unhappy citizens. And we mitigated that pretty well.
All right. Moving over to the Phase 2 mechanical project, and that's really anything that went on here in the district admin building. Anytime you get into remodeling an existing building, you have a lot of unforeseens, and that's kind of what we saw happen here. The first one on the left-hand side is the return air ductwork. Initially, we were planning for a plenum return. Then we discovered there were items in the plenums above the ceiling grid here. We discovered there were items in that space that were not plenum rated. So we had the option, you either have to replace all of those items with plenum rated material, or we went with this one, which would be your lesser expensive option, doing this return air ductwork. So we added ductwork from one room to the next to get the proper airflow needed for the building.
So a little background on that. Plenum return is everything above this ceiling. You have like a little egg crate over here. It lets the air go up above the ceiling, and it acts like one big duct and goes back to the mechanical unit, as opposed to having a duct that's hooked to that egg crate and goes back to the mechanical unit. Whenever you have, the previous owner put a lot of low voltage wiring up in the ceiling for the call center that they had here. None of that was plenum rated. There's some PVC pipe up there. There's quite a few items up there. By the time we'd have taken all the ceiling down and reworked all that, it was much cheaper, like Chelsea had mentioned, to do just a duct and a return. So that's what we did.
All right, the middle and right photos here. So initially we had planned to run the ductwork that connects from the mechanical room here. This is the northeast corner of your building. This trunk was so large that it actually wouldn't have fit because your roof is a single slope. So that space between your ceiling and the actual roof deck gets much narrower. The duct did not fit, so we had to reroute it. And you can see here it came out of the mechanical room and across a little bit further into the building and then made the connections there. So that was another add, an unforeseen just because of the building type and space.
And that reroute was due to the structural steel that's there. So on the low side, those columns are extra wide. They're a tapered column, so that couldn't pass underneath there.
All right. We included larger doors for the mechanical room access. Right now, your loading dock is a great space to bring things in and to get even the air handling unit pieces into that mechanical room required a larger doorway. So that required extra framing. You might ask, why did you go all the way over to this corner? And the answer is because on the back side of this wall, you can't quite see it in this picture, but there's a drinking fountain. So we gave you extra room to move carts, furniture, things down that corridor on the opposite side of the wall. We'll call this door number 2. This is a secondary door, so your mechanical room entrance is actually right over here, and this goes into the next larger space made for furniture and other larger pieces trying to move throughout the building. When removing the ductwork, you have 2 closets in the building that were part of our project that this is the ductwork you can see here. It came through your exterior wall, led up to the ceiling, and there also was a lot of pre-existing insulation that just wasn't covered at all, and per code we would have had to do something with that. So we patched the walls, that was planned as part of the project, and then you can see after we did put drywall and sheetrock, these closets included a light switch and a light fixture in each of them as well. On the exterior of the building, as you can see, this square is what we were patching. So you saw the ductwork going through the wall on the opposite side. Here's the exterior. That was all part of the base contract. But in one of the locations, this part was actually loose, so it was kind of unsupported. So we took that down, repaired that. And also across, there was a lot of water damage in here. These ducts just weren't sealed very well and it allowed water to get into the wall, so we chased that back and took care of that. And then you'll also see where the slab was cut here. This is the slab your mechanical unit was sitting on. This photo shows the rock that is put in as part of the drain tile. So we'll see that here in the next photo. So before you had, when you purchased the building, this is how it was pre-existing. You had kind of this riprap along the edge here, and it just wasn't diverting and collecting the water enough to get it to move. And you were experiencing water leaking into that building. And actually, pictures kind of taken right about from where that photo or that slab was that we saw in the last image. So we've taken it back, we've cut it down, put in a drain tile, put fabric around it, and that leads down to the road. And then this is filled with dirt. So in the last photo where you saw the rock, excuse me, it's rock, it's not dirt.
Real similar to what we did on the other side of the loading dock, and all of this issue is because this roof is a single slope, and that water all drains to the back, and there wasn't a good way to get that water out when you bought the building. We now have it fixed on both sides, drain tile on both sides, all the walls sealed up, And we removed anything that we could easily get to that had any mold or water damage to it, so that was all taken out.
In a couple locations, we learned that there were some hose bibs that were not functioning, and then a lot of the electrical outlets on the exterior of the building didn't have any covers on, so we made sure those were all up to code. Inside the building, there was some added steel required for the units that are now up on the roof. Initial plan included vertical insulation, but after the state plan review, they required and mandated that we add additional insulation. So what you're seeing here, kind of this foamy bubbled area, is the spray foam insulation at all of those roof penetrations. On the north end of the building, if you've gone through the door or the entrance down here, you may have actually walked up the grass hill yourself. In this area, there is a handicap or an ADA accessible ramp, but that ramp just goes so far kind of out of the way, depending upon where you park. Chances are you cut across the grass. So there's going to be a set of stairs installed right here. They're actually formed. They're going to be pouring those stairs tomorrow. A great feature for safety. Also, now that we have these units, so as you can see, this is the north end of the building. These are all of your new exhaust fans and air handling units that are now mounted on the ceiling, or excuse me, on the roof and not on the ground anymore. It's great that you've added this roof hatch. For safety reasons, it's much safer to go up a ship's ladder and roof hatch than it is an extension ladder. OSHA compliant, you can also carry up tools with you while you're going up a ship's ladder. It's much safer than that extension ladder. You also have this yellow safety guardrail, so if the hatch is open, you don't run any risk of falling down. And you can see this end over here is the OA corner and your mechanical phase 1 area. So a lot of equipment now up on the roof that may need maintenance. Looking in the loading dock, this is the ship's ladder that leads up. You can see the hatch is closed here, but it leads right up through there. In the area that is going to be the ALP, we took care of any of the areas that had holes in the wall, required patching. As you know, this building used to be a call center. There were a lot of cubicles. A lot of these columns in the building had power and data, low voltage kind of running through them. When all of that was disconnected, you were left with holes in the walls. So we took care of patching all of that, pretty much did the minimal that was required. Did the patching, painted up the wall, then after added some vinyl base in here. The district took care of cleaning the carpets. As you can see, we have not repaired or replaced the carpets, they just were shampooed. Again, this is the next room, kind of the 2 larger rooms is what we're looking at here. This wall wasn't ever finished, so we took care of mudding, taping, and painting on this wall. You can see there's reinforcement for a smart board. Looking at sound deadening, over the offices in the building for added privacy and for less disruption, you can see, might be a little hard to see, but there's kind of yellow bats of insulation in here that have been added over the walls, usually extending about 4 feet over the wall and over the offices so that it helps reduce that noise. And then in the front area in the vestibule, previously, I think it's been a couple years, we upgraded the doors on the front of the building there, but we hadn't done anything else yet to date. So now that we've got, more occupancy in the building, we're looking at here, the infill area. This was filled in, prepped for walk-off mat for carpeting in the vestibule. They'll be painting the walls in the vestibule, so the wallpaper has been removed there. And this is kind of your before photo. The reception desk had been taken out, so you can see there's kind of a hole in the carpet. And now we've prepped what is the east wall, pulled the wallpaper off of that, and then this is the vestibule here, you can see. So the wallpaper's been removed. They're gonna skim and sand the walls. And to prepare for, in that front reception area, there's gonna be 6 plaques or sculptures that are gonna go on the wall here, kind of you can see in the X's, but they are very heavy, so it's gonna require extra reinforcement. So you'll see some extra framing and things go into this wall to provide for that.
I believe those came out of, was it Virginia High School?
Yes.
They weigh about 1,200 pounds, so you can't hang them on a regular wall. So we're gonna reinforce that wall like Chelsea had mentioned, and then put some supports up above to tie it to the structure, and then get those hung right away. So just before he moves on with the dollars, this is a smattering of all the little things that we've had to do in this building. About midway through, we found out that you were moving the ALP in here. So to leave these areas code compliant because you just moved in with a couple offices in the front was not going to be acceptable to the state. Because once you put students in here to that population, you have to upgrade sprinkler heads that are too close to walls that the previous owner put in. You have to do a fire alarm system upgrades because now there's more rooms around here. All of those items add up to what we are coming to you tonight with amendment number 50.
Thanks, Pat. So over at North Star, with all these additions that we went through, in the tour and tonight, it's roughly about $140,000 budget shortfall that needed to be infused into the overall referendum budget.
So looking on the Evelyn and Gilbert demo projects on the Evelyn campus, we have about $244,000 in demo credit that you will see come back. $300,000 in costs. So this is an estimate of additional costs to, as we've shown in the photos, to cut through the pillars, the existing retaining wall revisions at the tennis courts, those temp enclosures, added soil import, areas that could not be used anymore where we were planning to pull soil from, segregating those utilities, added supervision and administration, and then double handling of debris and material. We had contractors who planned to use like the tennis courts as a road so that they could use to access for loading up those trucks. All of those costs though would be reimbursed by the city. So you'll see we have the deduct of $300,000 and the add of the $300,000. So that would be added to the land sale, and then the original $500,000 of the land sale agreement. And then the Gilbert campus, a few items we noted there, the additional below grade pipe and that asbestos containing tennis court abatement. Looking at the phase 2 mechanical project, we're at about a $230,000 shortfall. There's a long list here. Most of the items we went over in the photos, or as Pat pointed out, like the sprinkler head upgrades, horn strobes. There's some existing roof repair, some leaks through the roof that were taken care of, the drain tile.
We have that in their packet as well. Key thing is we are going to be ready for you to do school here on time for the ALP program, and we made those transitions.
At the Rockridge High School, here's some items that KA coordinated and supervised. Many of these items were on the 11-month warranty walkthrough punch list. A lot of these items may seem simple to complete, but getting a contractor to come back after they've been gone for at least 11 months has been pretty difficult. Whether it's getting material ordered and getting them here in an already full schedule.
All right, so with all of those put together, we had to bring it in on one slide, easy for you to look at. So the budget summary, North Star of 140, Evelyn Gilbert 187, and the phase 2 mechanical in the admin building here 230. So if we do the math over here, all of these items added up have a total cost, and then the Evelyn demo specifically over here with your credit and the cost and city reimbursement that Chelsea went through in your land sale. The net is a surplus of $187,000. So you come out ahead at the end of that land sale, the demo credit, and then all these additional costs, which is good.
Was the maker spaces, was that an add-on or is that in the original plan?
That was an add-on in the high school.
And what were those for?
I think it was with the special projects and it was too noisy in that area. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Schmidt, but something along
Yeah,
those
it was a
lines.
sound transmission issue.
That's different than the math people that wanted the partitions and.
Yes, there were two things in the high school. The high school teacher said were high priorities, and they both involved sound. The first one was in a double classroom,
Right.
And so we put a partition there so the walls can close or they can be open. So now the teachers can go either way, and that'll deaden the sound so they can have a class on either side of the partition. The other
Very
one,
similar to the Laurentian and the North Star, which.
Almost exact.
Teachers, I believe, really enjoy, so.
and then the other one was in a lower level makerspace room. There was a corner of a room that was open and sound was traveling from that room into the open area. And so we're squaring off that, putting a door there so that the sound won't travel from that classroom to the outer area and vice versa.
I think the original intent, design-wise, was leave that as a bigger opening to be able to move materials into the makerspace. And then when you build a project, to easily get it out of the makerspace. But the amount of noise that it takes to make that item, a lot of cases here, and Mr. Winter could probably comment on that, was too loud for the other classrooms that are in the area. So it was kind of a trade-off. This is now the fix.
And with moving those materials in another room, we did keep that in mind, so the door is a little larger than your standard door. Kind of similar like Chelsea went through here in this building to have a larger door to move those bigger materials in.
What happened at the auditorium, performing arts stage face replacement? What had to be replaced there? Performing Arts Center stage face replacement.
Yep, there was, that was a part of the warranty work. You want to talk about that quickly?
Yeah, on the base of the stage, the wrong material was put in, it was wearing off. So they had to come back and replace it with the correct material. So that was a warranty item.
No. It's in here, but there is no additional cost. Some of these costs and that one didn't?
Correct.
Okay, that was no cost.
And Pete, what did you have for flood damage at the North Star there?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I didn't have that up there.
It was on there, but you didn't mention it.
So during the tour, we talked about that when we were down in the ninja space, down in the basement of the North Star. So during that really bad rainstorm that we had,
Yep.
the whole loading dock area and stuff was flooded. People's houses were getting flooded. Well, we did get water in the building down there. I don't know the exact measurement, but it was a lot of water down there. So
12 to 18 inches in the basement, I think.
is that what it was? So got all that pumped out, and then between KA personnel and the district worked together and got that all cleaned up, and we couldn't even tell when we were
You
done.
couldn't even tell.
No, not at all.
It worked
Yeah.
really well.
It was a problem with the city. A lot of that water came up through the drains. So instead of the water draining out, it was bubbling up through the drains. And they contacted the city and then released some water. I don't know what they did. I don't want to get into that.
I don't know what they did
But
either.
within about 20 minutes, all of a sudden, the drains were now draining in the proper direction, and we got it really mitigated how bad the damage could have been.
Okay.
And we did do some resealing and patching of where some conduits were coming in to the basement, that the water actually, so much pressure there had blown through. So that's all resealed now, so.
So might that happen again? And would there be something that we could do that could happen
I
again?
don't, could it happen again? Yes. It's a city utility issue, though. I don't know what you can do as, just like if you had a basement in the city and all the drains start running the wrong direction, how much you can do about it.
Some kind of pump or something?
Yeah, but multiple drains in the basement, all pushing water out instead of draining out. The only thing that you can do is really keep in close communication with the city on when we have a major rain event. I don't know if you, not to get too deep on this, but like the city of Superior used to have this problem, and then they went and built these big containment areas for water. And when they get a really bad rain event, instead of all the water overwhelming the system, it goes into these big holding tanks around the city. And then after the rain's done, it slowly releases that water back into the system. You don't have that right now in Virginia. So it just, when the rain comes, it overwhelms the system and then it overflows into the lowest point. That would be your basement.
You bring up a good point is pumps. That's one thing I don't have on this list or presentation is the existing lift station that was left in the loading dock area of North Star. The pumps are actually being replaced because they were just past their prime, and if those go down, then you will have backup into the basement. So those pumps are getting replaced actually this week.
And that is,
quality flow.
and that is sanitary sewer versus
Yeah.
storm from rain, so.
So. Okay, any other questions on that before we go into the master budget? Okay, so this is the master budget for the whole referendum. So we have Laurentian, high school, demo, North Star, and the phase 2. And I've highlighted how much added work was at each one. And you might ask, well, what about the high school? I thought some of that was warranty. Well, there was added furnitures and fixtures as well that was purchased.
I think you approved that in previous board meetings.
So this is just the money for those, and then Kraus doesn't get any markups or anything on that. It's a soft cost to you guys only. So that's why you don't see it on the amendment, just to clear that. But then the other additional costs over at the demos, the 187 that you saw, the 140 at North Star, and then the 230 at Mechanical. So overall, 95% of it's spent already out of the 212. So we're almost to the end here. So after it's all said and done, there is some unallocated funds that are left over for the use of the district. And so when we calculate those numbers, after the, if the amendment is approved tonight, that's what these numbers represent. So there's a total of $4 million remaining in funds, plus the net credit from the Evelyn land sale, and then the cost of the purchase of the 1404 building, including closing costs, if that goes through. And you're left with about $2 million of remaining funds for you guys to use for other future projects as you see fit. So that's a good sign. Any questions on this one?
Do you have any number figures for these future potential projects? They look like big ticket items to me.
No, we have not put any estimates together for that because we don't know exactly what you guys are thinking or what you're looking at doing yet, so.
Until you're closing, we really can't go into the facility and investigate. So we look forward to doing that as soon as your closing can happen.
And then this building need more district office remodeling? District admin building, more remodeling?
That's just an option.
Yeah, we just listed some of the items that have been talked about in AT groups of what you're going to do with 1404, but that is totally up to the school board to decide. The purpose of this slide is after all of this is done, what do we have left? Do we have enough money? First of all, the answer is yes. What do we have left? About $2 million after you buy 1404. Okay.
Okay, now we'll go through the amendment. I'm gonna go pretty quick because we've seen these before, and if you have any questions, just stop me. So this is a summary of all the amendments to date. As you can see, for all the additional work in FF&E over at the high school, it was about $700,000 add into the referendum from those unallocated funds. And then we'll go through the K-8 portion is. So there's a give back on the general conditions. As we're wrapping up the projects and we're projecting those costs, we're seeing that we're not using as all of those funds. So then we're just giving them back, typical towards the end. The additional site services for all the administrative and supervision time for all the added work that we just went through. The reimbursable expenses, those are your one-for-one miscellaneous expenses. And then the CMP, which is a 2% for the contract. So total add of $237,848.32. So out of the 700, the KA portion is the 237. All the rest is the contractors and furniture and other soft costs.
Is the 2% for KA, you said the give backs, the 56,800 some, you don't get 2% of that, do you?
No.
No, actually our fee goes down because we give that money back. Yeah. This is just a detailed breakdown of each project. So the demolition, North Star, and the admin building are the ones that are affected by the KA amendment. As I mentioned before, there was added costs over at the high school but it didn't have anything to do with construction, it was just owner stop costs. So then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, otherwise we would ask for approval tonight of amendment number 15.
Any questions for KA?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Reardon.
Support.
For any
Discussion.
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Like, do you want the clicker up here?
Oh, you can take that.
Moving along, consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Director Culper-Dahl, support. I'll support that. Any discussion?
We have a couple for discussion.
Okay,
Oh, boy. 5.4, I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
okay,
5.4, 5.5, 5.6, they're all related.
okay.
Quick question on 5.11. Quick question on 5.11.
Okay,
5.13. I guess that's it. I just have a question about all the resignations, and it seems like a lot of resignations. Repairs. Especially repairs, I just wondered if there's some comment to be made about all those resignations. And then, do we need to replace them all, and are we posting and advertising?
do you wanna take these one by one, or what do you wanna, how do you wanna do it?
Well, our policy says one thing.
We can remove these and we'll vote on the remaining ones and take them one by one if you want after.
That's fine.
All right. We'll vote on the consent agenda, minus 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.11, 5.13. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, pass 6-0. 5.4, what is your question?
Yeah, just wondering what process that went through, this head boys hockey coach.
We had a committee, we had posted and advertised, we had a committee of 5 people on the hiring crew, we had 3 applicants, and we interviewed all 3, and it was a unanimous decision to offer the job to Mr. Niskanen.
Okay, we had 3 applicants.
Yep.
And then,
All 3 were given an interview.
okay, and 5 on the committee, did this go through the board athletic committee or just this hiring?
Hiring committee that Josh Lampa put together.
Were there any board members on that?
I was on there.
And you're also on the athletic committee, correct?
Yep.
But it did not go through the athletic committee.
Just wondering what the process was and how many applicants we had, and
We had 3, and all 3 got an interview.
I don't, so was there something that made one rise to the top as the best applicant?
Yeah, he was hands down the best applicant. He was prepared. He has obviously a incredible resume, and he comes with a wealth of knowledge, and he answered the questions really well. There we go, excited that he's willing to take that on.
It looks like he's not taking a salary, would that be correct, or?
He'd like to use his salary to hire an extra assistant coach. 2 assistants would divide the 3 salaries equally.
Yeah, that's what I didn't get. There's 3 salaries. They would 2 assistants would divide the 3 salaries.
Yeah,
He's
there's,
giving his up, his, and then if there's an assistant boys hockey and a junior boys varsity, you always had those, or is that?
Yeah, we always had
they've
those.
always had the 2. What it sounds like to me is that for his salary is added to the 2 regular assistants, and then all 3 of them are gonna divide it up equally.
Okay, so the question is, did last year, have we always had an assistant boys hockey coach?
Yes.
And have we always had a junior varsity boys hockey coach?
Yes.
So now, does that mean we're gonna have a second assistant and a junior varsity boys hockey coach? because it talks about 2 assistants. So are we adding an assistant under this scenario?
We're adding my interpretation of it is we're adding an assistant, and that assistant's being paid. All the assistants are getting paid partially by the head coach's salary.
So if they're,
That he's not taking.
no, I get it, he's throwing his salary into the pot, but I'm trying to figure out if we're going to have 2 assistant hockey coaches now for boys, and we have one before. Cooper McLean is one, who is the other assistant boys hockey coach?
I don't know who that is. I imagine that would be on a future agenda.
And then because the junior varsity boys hockey is a different position.
Pardon me?
The junior varsity boys hockey coach is a different position.
Yep.
Okay, so it sounds like we're adding an assistant. There's no name to it, so it's adding a position.
That'd be my assumption.
And I would assume it would come to the board for approval down the line.
Well, aren't we kind of approving it with this scenario that,
We're approving the position, but we're not approving
Person in the.
personnel.
he would like to use the salary to hire an extra assistant. So that's coming before the board later. So now
Pass a background check and stuff, we do all that, and
we would have 2 assistants.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe he's bringing a goalie coach or something, or who knows?
And didn't we have a policy where the head coach picks his assistant coaches, his or her coaches? They don't really, we don't really post and advertise and,
Typically in the past, that's how it's gone.
yeah, so,
So I would assume that he wants to work with the assistant and the junior varsity.
Yeah.
But the positions are all posted. But the head coach is involved in the hire, gets to say their opinion, yes, but they're all posted.
I'm just thinking back a meeting or 2 ago that we hired an assistant. There wasn't the head coach at that point in time.
Could happen, yep.
But then if the head coaches pick their assistants, having an assistant.
Sometimes because of circumstances, it could happen a little bit in the reverse order. But generally speaking, the head coach comes first.
All right, we need to be consistent. Okay, what was the other one here?
511, or no, 5, yeah, you answered 5.5 and 5.6.
511, yeah.
So 5.11, you removed.
Is the PNC student group leader, is that a new position?
Was that Samantha Craig's position?
No, that's not a new
Samantha
position.
Craig.
Not new, is that under the PNC grant money, or is that our general fund? money?
ACN grant money.
Okay, but somebody else had this position
Yep.
last year. And,
5.13, you removed.
yeah, so the para of Steve Mannanen, it looks like it's less hours. Is that a demotion? Not a demotion, but it's a reduction of hours. And is this something that we would have had to?
We occasionally have individuals asked to work fewer hours. There's a number of different reasons why someone's hours could go down. Generally, they never go down, but sometimes we do have people who don't want to work quite as many hours.
And this was a
And
request?
there could be yes, this person is very well aware of it.
Okay, it was a request. And then do we have a need for those additional hours, those 7.5 hours? So we're not going to replace the 7.5 hours. And that's a para. Okay, my thought there was if it was the other way around and we were reducing, not at a request, that wouldn't we have had to give, if this person was tenured, would we have not have had to give the notice before a certain period of time?
Yes, we would not do that. There'd be a process to go through, and there's, in the para world, there's usually so many jobs that are open that it's not an issue at all. That very rarely does a para need to go down in hours. We just don't do it. It's because there's so many jobs that paras have available to them.
Can you tell us what area that 7.5 less para hours would affect?
I believe this is, we have an expert in the audience who would love to answer that question.
He was a para in the early childhood brief program, And that position, we have 10-hour positions and 29-hour positions. And when I spoke with Steve, he did not want to increase his hours. He would have rather gone down to the 10 hours. That was his choice to do that.
Thanks, Sheena.
Yeah, but that's 7.5 hours. If we had a need for it, is that going to be less services for some students?
Nope, because of our early childhood program going to 5 days a week now. Last year, he was the threes para and he did the Friday extra class. Well, Friday extra is not an extra class anymore. That's a full 5-day class.
Okay, we can have a need for that then.
Correct.
Okay, good, thanks. I think that was it, John, was it?
Yep. We take all 5 of those at once, you want
Let's see. Except, let's take 5.4 separate.
can I get a motion to approve 5.4?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving 5.4, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Motion
take
passes.
the rest together.
5.1, and a motion for 5.5, 5.6, 5.11, and 5.13.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving right along, 6.1, superintendent. Did you want to, resignations on all these? I mean, do you want to say anything about all those?
Oh, yeah, I was
Sure.
curious about that
Oh,
too.
I will just say that this is normal for this time of year, that we have a lot of paras who are officially letting us know they're working somewhere else. Not unusual for us to have 25 to 30% turnover or paras coming back. And the reason for it is we don't have full-time paras mostly working for us, but this is kind of normal. And this is the time of year we bring them to, because normally they don't tell us they're leaving until later in the summer. And the fact that now, if you're a para, there's a way you can get unemployment benefits in the summer. There's no advantage to them to letting us know until now that they're not coming back. So this is kind of normal.
So
for
are
us.
we short with paras? Are we okay or like?
We are okay paras. Now, keep in mind, as part of the budget, we're going down in the total number of paras. So almost certainly we're still going to be looking for paras, but we will have fewer paras than what we had last year. Some of this is frankly, we've had a number of kids leave our district. They had paras with them, and so we don't need that para to do that specific job.
So we may or may not fill some of these para positions and assistant speech coach. Refill that or not? And assistant football coach.
Yep, these are kind of normal resignations at this time of year. I don't see anything unusual with what you see.
But we're planning to replace those.
Yeah.
The speech and the.
Relative, now keep in mind on the budget, you're reducing your number of coaches all across the board, so we are doing that.
I thought there was a difference between assistant coaches that we reduced or almost eliminated all sport assistant coaches, and the others were volunteer coaches. Some sports have assistants and some don't, right?
Well, depending what level it is, yes, that's true. But we're reducing the number of paid coaches throughout all the systems. Because that was what the school board, one of the things you told us to do to help the budget be balanced. And keep in mind, a lot of the coaches, we added coaches when the two schools came together for the consolidation. So really, what we're doing for the most part is going back to the number of coaches that we had before the consolidation. You could look at it that way.
Okay. You're still on.
Thank you, Director Yuhan. And you are so excited because you get another one of my crazy drawings. But first, want to do one thing. I want to update you on the Minnesota School Trust lands. You don't have to do anything with this. This is just so you know that there's a proposal put out there. You have the letter that we received. You can see that. This is turning into a contentious topic. Not everybody agrees with what should be done. You don't need to do anything right now, but it would not surprise me if you don't hear about meetings in the future or something being done by several organizations here. And a lot of this is to try to get the best deal for the school trust lands, because there's a lot of income that's generated from these. And the way the laws are set up, they go to all of the schools in the state of Minnesota. Even though, yes, ironically, I know a lot of those dollars actually are generated in Northeast Minnesota, but they go all over the place. So I'm still waiting for the Mall of America to send you a check from their part of the district. We're still waiting for their property taxes. So you send property tax money down there. It's just the way the system is set up. So this is just an FYI to you right now.
Okay.
The next thing, this is the crazy drawing. I want to give you an update. I know it's kind of crazy and I like doing these, but there's some serious stuff on here. Background this is that, as you know, we do want our students to behave better. Let me go straight to the point. And so we are doing a number of things and will be doing a number of things to make that happen. So what happened is that we had a group of teachers and there was representation from every single building. These teachers volunteered. They actually showed up on their very last teacher workday. Then they appeared, had multiple meetings over the summer. We listened to what they were saying as far as what their recommendations were, and what you have in front of you is what their recommendations are. We are following through on these, and there's more information under each one of these, but I'm going to give you the quick, big picture Cliff Notes version right now. And of course, I put it as lakes. So what you see in front of you are a series of 7 lakes, because then they're all different. And you see some of my little crazy drawings in there about people fishing, swimming, paddleboarding. Even got a skiing one in there, but I had to draw that one several times because the first couple were worse, if you can believe that. So the gist here, and I'm actually quite optimistic that we will have better systems and procedures for improving student behavior. But here's what we're looking at. So number one, and I'm looking at the lake in the upper left-hand corner in green, this is what the group come up. Now, some of this is not new. Some of this is kind of old-fashioned. So, but here's what they said. One, follow the consequences in the handbook and policy. So when something happens, we look at the handbook policy. This includes admin, deans, principals, teachers, and then we look and we follow through with what it says. That's what the matrix says. There's a matrix, and the teachers are updating the matrix. They've done that over the summer. I think most of the matrices are done. Also, teach and reteach students. This is not new. This is old-fashioned, teaching kids how to behave. We are going to be spending more time teaching kids how to behave, what the standards are, what they're supposed to be doing. And anything I'm saying here, realize that most of our students, they're actually well behaved. They're doing the rules, they're doing what they should be. We're talking about a certain group of students that we want them to behavior, and we also want everyone helping on this one. We also want to have better communication. This will show up on a number of them. The second thing we want to do, which is the lake to the right, if-then system. If this happens, then this should happen. This includes that, you're going to see it, teachers, admin, staff, pairs, we need to follow through. So this means that, and the teachers were very insistent on this one, and nobody was disagreeing. So if a student is doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, we're not going to pretend we don't see it. We're not going to pretend it's not happening. We're going to follow through. And this means that the classroom teachers, this is the paras, and this includes the admin in the office. This also means, and the teachers want to do this, we're going to revisit the plan periodically, quarterly in this case, to see if we need to make any adjustments or changes. And we're talking about here all of our buildings here. This is everyone, K-12. The third lake, I'm just going to quickly in the lower right-hand corner in red. This came up in addition to keeping the standards, holding the kids to the standards, which actually the kids want. It's simply not true that kids want to misbehave. Most kids really want order and discipline in the classroom. They really do. And so, but in addition to that, the teachers also want us to take a look at some restorative practices. Now, what this means is it's simply another option for us to do. So you can't do the same thing all the time when a kid who's doing something. There might be some reasons why we want to do something else. And this is not new. Teachers and counselors and admin have been talking to kids for years about different options and different ways to think about things. So they would like to get some of the staff trained in restorative practices so they have another option that they can use with the kids. Does not mean everything is going through restorative practices. This is probably one of the biggest myths I hear about this one, is that everything's going through restorative practice. No, it's not. But it's another tool that sometimes it works and it helps. Number 4, right in the middle there, this has to regards the consequences laid out and then what's next. So we think we have a pretty good handle on what's should happen when a student misbehaves. So what happens when a teacher writes a referral? So what we do is we want to make sure that the most important thing is that it's done fast. So if a teacher writes a referral, something happens in the classroom, it shouldn't take 2 days for somebody to do something with it. Depending upon the severity, the severe things need to get dealt with, boom, right away. They do not wait for the next day. But in general, if someone writes a referral, it needs to be followed up immediately, because otherwise kids think they got away with something. They think nobody cares. They think, oh, I did that, nobody did anything about it. So we want faster intervention, and I'll talk about that. And we want to know whose job is it to do what. And then we also want paras helping, teachers in the building helping. We also want plans and steps. We want the parents to know what's going on. So you're going to see additional information going out to the parents. So the parents are aware this is not a secret. That's why I'm deliberately doing this when the camera is rolling. This is not a secret. We want everyone to know this because we want Rockbridge schools to be safe. We want it to be a great place for learning. We want to tighten things up. In addition to this, we'll have some meetings with parents, and each building will take care of that, working out that with their building. Then we're going to go to number 5, which is the top orange. We also want staff to go through de-escalation training. What this means is that when kids are misbehaving, sometimes simply yelling at a kid is not the best strategy. There are other things that we can do to de-escalate things rapidly. We don't want to make things worse when we show up. So there's some things that our staff want to do. They want to get trained in ACEs, trauma informed, for example. They also want better communication going back to home and here. They want it faster too. And they also want it faster. So if I'm a teacher, I've written a referral for some reason, it goes to the office, I'm the teacher, I want to know what happened to that conversation that the dean or the principal had in the office. So I should get that information back fast. I shouldn't be wondering. I shouldn't be worrying about it. I shouldn't need to go, what happened? So I should get that information back very fast. And that's another thing we're working on. So de-escalation training, we do get some of this with CPI. The special ed teachers are familiar with this term. Our teachers are saying they would like more training on it. Number 6, the next one here is, this is in the lower left-hand corner, attendance. Attendance was a topic that was talked about, and going straight to the point, our teachers want kids in the classroom. They want them in the classroom, they want them there, they don't want them roaming the hallways, they don't want them hanging in the bathroom, they don't want them in downtown, going where else, they want them in the classroom. Because it's awful hard to have a student improve and get better academically if they're not there. This is not a new thing. This is something old-fashioned. But sometimes the old-fashioned things work very well. So what we're going to do is pay a lot more attention to the kids who aren't there. Why aren't they there, and getting them in there? So we're also going to work with the parents more to give them more frequent communication, such that we know sometimes kids are gone for perfectly legitimate reasons. Well, sometimes we want to know those reasons faster if we can. So then we can know faster who's there and who's not there. We're talking about using Power School more effectively on the attendance part of it. We're talking about also, in addition to that, there were some questions about Minnesota State High School League rules. If a kid does something, either behavior-wise or discipline-wise, is that information getting to the coaches so they know maybe somebody's not eligible to play a game, or somebody's not eligible for something. So we'll work with our activity directors and admin to make sure that that information is getting through to everyone faster. The last one, which is in the number 7, which is in the smallest lake, is kind of in the yellowish. The teacher said, and they're saying, hold us accountable. And this goes for admin too. We're supposed to be running our classroom. We're supposed to be managing behavior in the classroom. And if we're not doing that, please let us know. And so this also means that other staff supporting other staff. And they were very clear on this. This is a whole building together. Everyone's in this together. So what the teachers would like to have happen is for all the teachers to be on board, all the teachers to be paying attention. So what we don't want is, unless it's a special occasion, in this part of the building, teacher is letting kids do all sorts of things that they shouldn't be doing. In this part of the building, the teachers are holding the line and having everyone do what they're supposed to be doing. They don't want that to happen. So they want admin, someone, but they also want to be able to talk to each other and say, hey, that's not what we do here. So if that's this, now there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm not giving you right here, but so what'll happen is I'll go over this with all the teachers when they all come back. The teachers, we're giving them extra time in their buildings because each building is going to be a little different on how this might play out. So they're going to have some time to think and talk to other staff members in the building, how this would work out at Laurentian versus North Star versus the high school. And they will also talk about that. So we're putting in extra time and effort because in my mind, this is one of the most important things for us to do this year because parents, as you know, and kids and staff are telling us they want better behaved kids. It's that simple. And so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do a number of things to help our kids behave better. And we do want them to behave better because they're going to be taxpayers, they're going to be citizens, they're going to be community members. We want them acting appropriately. We want them doing the right thing. So when our kids go out, we want to hear some people say, Rockridge kids, your kids were great. This is like the best group of kids I've seen here. And we do hear some of that. We want to hear that all the time, that our kids, our Rockridge kids, God, you got great, outstanding kids. And so in addition to this here, another thing I'm doing is that we're starting special ed in a couple of years. And this is related to discipline. So I am reassigning Todd Grippentrog to work in special ed, but I'm also and he's gonna be going after some money on third-party billing. And in addition to that, he's gonna be in charge of paras. And in addition to that, I'm assigning him to Laurentian for part of the day. And the reason for that is, there are about 500 students at Laurentian. There are about 400 students at North Star. There are about 300 students at Parkview. So when you just look at the numbers, we have one building that has almost 500 kids, 400, 300. Once you get to 500 kids in elementary schools, you start looking for extra help. Because the volume just, at some point, you just reach a volume where there's just too many of them. So he will be there also helping with some of the discipline at Laurentian, doing some of the other duties also with the special ed, and he will be great at that role. He can do a lot with special ed. We need that help in there. And so that's going to help us out in that area. So Laurentian is going to get more help, and what's going to happen in the high school, we are looking for a dean. So the high school will have one principal and two deans. And the good part about this is that those two deans, I want them working on one topic and one topic only, student behavior. They're not doing teacher evaluations. They're not running around worrying about the building operation. They are focusing and working with the teachers on student behavior. How can they support the teachers in the high school on student behavior for fast interventions? And so that's what's going to happen in high school. So hopefully we will have faster interventions in the high school, because that's all those two deans is paying attention to that. Any questions or from the board?
I have a couple of questions.
I heard you.
One of the questions I had is just, some of the meet and confers that we've had, that discipline is a major issue. And there was talk about the need for like a district-wide curriculum for dealing with social emotional learning things. Has there been any more discussion about that?
The teacher group did talk about that. And when that topic came up, it came under the restorative topic. So that's where it came up. But as far as the highest priority things to take care of first, that was kind of down there a little bit. These things that you just heard about, they were viewed as a higher priority by most people, but that part's going to come in under the restorative part.
Okay.
And it's also there in the 7th and 8th grade with the leader and me. There is a component of that does address that topic. Most of our kids have not taken it because the high school's only been together for 1 year.
Do we have anybody that's going into the classrooms to do any social emotional learning in the elementary school level?
Counselors.
Like developmental guidance? type
Counselors do
stuff?
it. We have 2 elementary principals here. Angie or Sheena, do you want to address that?
I know my counselor at the Laurentian Elementary, she does go into classrooms and she does do those types of lessons. And we also are starting to use the Leader in Me curriculum, K through 2 this next year.
Okay.
Ditto.
Okay.
What facility is it?
And then as far as attendance goes, that can be a very big job for somebody. Do we have anybody that would be like a truancy specialist that would be making those contacts? I know Power School sends out, if a student is absent an hour in the high school or something like that, right? Power School does send out an alert or a notification.
Yeah, well, and part of when we were talking in the group was that we believe that a lot of this can be done internally by us doing things differently. So it's not hiring another person, it's our teachers promptly putting things and notifying us. It's us sweeping the hallways, making sure kids aren't just hanging around doing things like this. It's us contacting parents fast to let them know that their kid isn't here. And it's trying to talk to parents and work with parents so that we get those kids in the building more. So a lot of this, frankly, was stuff we thought we could and should do better on.
Okay, because sometimes, there's barriers to attendance for families too, and having somebody able to work with them on that would be beneficial too.
Yep.
And then just reiterating some of what's on your beautiful drawing here, is the chain of command, and just reviewing that with everybody on what the proper chain of command is for if anybody ever has an issue, etc. Reviewing that's important too.
And one of the reasons that's in there is that in the high school last year, they had the kids divided up by the alphabet. Not this year. So we're gonna have, one of the deans is gonna focus on 7th and 8th. maybe ninth, but probably seventh and eighth. That's where most people thought it should be, because that's where most of the behavior is. It's the seventh and eighth graders. And then the other dean could take care of the ninth through 12th graders. And so it'd be clear who the chain of command was to go through, because it was a problem last year because something might happen in a classroom with two students. And one might be an Anderson and the other might be a Zeke. And so what happened is the same incident might have two different deans or people trying to, it didn't work. And so now what we're going to is just go way simpler. So everybody knows, boom, this is who I'm going to talk to about this problem.
Thank you.
About the reassignment first, and then I'd like to talk to you about number 3 here on your chart. So if we do, I think the board needs to have a conversation about this possible reassignment, because a couple of things. Okay, so if you have 2 deans now instead of a dean, a principal, and assistant principal, and now you're going to give different duties to Todd. Some of them, I mean, third-party billing itself can be just an enormous thing, and responsibility and a learning curve. And so I think the board needs to have a discussion of maybe what's best for the district and for kids in a reassignment like that. Plus, if you take and you add another dean, but you move a person who was a vice principal, you've got a net addition of a person. You've got a portion of an addition, and that's a board decision. We would be increasing one a portion of a person, and that's salary and benefits. So that's another board decision and discussion.
Couple things on that one. Here's the details on the reassignment. So that's what superintendents do. We reassign people all the time. The rest of the story is that when I look at the data, we left $500,000 on the table in third-party billing that we did not fill out, or the NLC did not fill out. That's a lot of money that we didn't get. So we need to put someone in there. The second thing on that one is, so that's a big deal to in my head. The second thing is that because of the way special ed funding works, there's a way you can get reimbursement through the state of Minnesota. And so we can code whoever is doing that and working with special ed a certain way that you get reimbursement dollars from that. And so in addition to getting back $500,000 that we didn't get back and we should have gotten back, we're also able to code part of the salaries to special ed. And then in addition to that, Laurentian needs help.
Doesn't Laurentian have a semi-dean of students over there already?
No, they do not have a dean of
Somebody
students.
that helps Angie?
Every building has a para that we put as kind of a floater para. That person exists in all of the building.
There's no extra help for Angie in the Laurentian, huh?
No, there is. She has,
Floating para?
she has a floating para,
Floating para, okay.
and now Todd will be there for part of the day.
Well, I still think the full board needs to have a discussion on that. Are you saying that we didn't get $500,000 from, because the NLC didn't do paperwork right?
Somebody didn't.
Well, somebody, well, I guess we should talk about that more too, because I don't know. If that's the case, I wouldn't want to be blaming anybody or any organization. In the
I'm not
NLC.
blaming anybody.
Well, you said we left $500,000 on the table in third-party billing, and NLC does all of our third-party billing with input and data from our district. So if that's the case, we need to find out where that happened. So you're saying you're not blaming anybody, I'm not either, but we should find out where and why that hole was and identify it. But
And I would like to solve it fast because the school year is starting quickly.
yeah, well,
And because we are starting our own special ed, you've already told me these are one of the things we have to start shifting into because we are starting our own special ed program. The train has left the station and things have to start happening here fairly quickly. And any position like the dean position, all that comes to the board And so you're going to end up talking about this again.
My concern about the third-party billing is, does he have experience in that? Because if somebody was missing that pot of money for third-party billing, whether it was the NLC or, our staff, if somebody was missing that, does he have enough knowledge on third-party billing to be able to find that hole?
And that could be a full-time position in itself. It's very intricate with laws
Possibly.
and rules and
And
regulations and reports.
if I remember correctly, we did talk a little bit about that in a personnel committee meeting about having somebody for third-party billing.
In talking to people who do this already, third-party billing takes up about a half-time job for a district our size. But you need somebody who knows what they're doing and is sharp and smart, and he absolutely can get the job done. In talking to Hibbing, who is kind of in our situation, they're kind of off by themselves. They've been doing this for a number of years. We've talked to them. They're absolutely willing to help us. They're willing to train and on the procedures and process. And once you understand the procedures and process, and you're talking to teachers and paras on what to do and what needs to go, then I'm very confident that we'll be able to get it done. And we will have to send them to training, and we'll absolutely have to do that.
Okay.
It eliminates a level or a step. When we used to have to give it to the NLC, now we're going to be doing it all internally.
I'm suggesting strongly to you that you be in control of this and not somebody else.
So because this just came up tonight, I really do think we, as a board, need to have more discussion specifically about this, the addition and the additional portion of a person, the third-party billing part. So I just,
We did say in the personnel committee meeting that we were gonna hold off on hiring a third-party billing person and a coordinator, correct? We're looking at how the next couple of years go and what our needs will be going forward.
Right, but we're not hiring someone extra for third-party billing. I'm shifting
Right.
someone into that position. And during the
Because we need
shift,
it.
you can code someone, you can code it, and you can get reimbursement for part of the salary. And then if you want to do something different with that down the road, we certainly can absolutely talk about it and do that. But in the context of we have discipline issues that we can't wait. They need to be addressed now. We need these teachers to be looking and working on these things. And so I guess I'm suggesting and giving to the board a way to handle a number of things in one swoop.
I feel like I can get behind that and support that, but the other thing that I was gonna mention too was, I believe during our special ed director's interviews, she also has experience with third-party billing, if I remember correctly, so they can work together on that as well. And I just wanna remind, again, when we had the school social worker position, there was a lot of discussion about what the school social worker could be doing some third-party billing for as well. And I really think that that's important for us to be looking into, to see if there is some money that we could be getting for school social work type stuff too. The only other thing I was gonna mention about the changing of positions or whatever is, we also received an email, I think we did as a whole board, talking about coverage when principals are gone from a building. Is that an option to utilize him as a floating principal as well for situations such as that?
Yes, here's some more details about this. So, a couple things. One is that the construction's kind of slowing down now. So the admin group, which has been meeting once a week, now we're gonna go to once every other week. So the principals go to that meeting, so they are not gonna be going to that meeting every week, so they're gonna be back in the building. The second thing we're gonna take a look at is seeing if we can have the principals meet every other week also. We meet every week right now. We've done that for a number of years, to see if we're able to do that. The other thing in doing that, now this is at Laurentian, and you did hear more from Laurentian than from some of the other buildings, is that if Angie needs to go somewhere, you have a licensed administrator in the building. So Angie could leave the building and Laurentian still has a licensed administrator in the building.
Although, Noel, if you put 2 deans in the senior high school, 7 through 12, you don't have a backup licensed person either, and there are things that a principal with a license can do that deans of students cannot do. So the same scenario that you're saying, you would leave the senior high school without a principal if Mark had to be gone, so.
But that's why I said like a floating principal, so could be at any of the buildings, not just, you
Now,
know.
here's why this will work here, and it might not work in many different districts, and I've been a dean, so I know what a dean does. The only thing a dean cannot do is sign a out-of-school suspension paper. They can interview, but the principal, and there's still one in the building, that's what the Prince Mark Winter would get involved in. Now, we're also lucky in that the high school is right there. You have myself, who's in this building. We have Willie Speltz, who's also administrator. So if the high school needs immediately help, it's right across the parking lot. This is a situation that almost never happens. And so we have some unique situations here that lead me with a higher level of confidence that this is going to work.
Principals can also do evaluations that deans can't do, and that's another thing.
And if we need to, then I will do some of the evals. Willie will do some of the evals. He's got the admin license. We can help out on some of those areas.
Again, I hope it gets longer discussion when this additional dean of students comes up, because I'm not sure that I support this reassignment. We reassigned him last year too. And I didn't necessarily, without board discussion, even discussion. And yes, yes, that's what we hire you to do, some things, but boards should have input into directing certain things, certain ways, as we're going to talk about the music, as we're going to be talking about SMART, okay? So that's the same analogy I'd like to use. But moving on to your chart here, and number 3, well, you were talking about restorative practices and training and making training mandatory, and in the whole scenario, working more with parents. A couple of things. So restorative practices, I looked, some of the restorative practices there could be many, many more. I wrote them down: community conferencing, peer juries, circles, peer mediation, social emotional learning. Now, first of all, with the parent factor, I hope that restorative practices within the district and within our school with our students, none of that happens without parental knowledge, parental consent, parental involvement, and restorative practices in themselves, as you know, can be a very controversial topic that
To some
we as a
people,
board,
yes.
yes, to some people, but we as a board need to discuss that. If that's something in our district that we as a board will support in total, in parts of it, or whatever, that's, I think, a good board discussion, because we, represent our communities. And the parent part of it, too, is very important to me, with knowledge and consent in some of these things. Because you get into social, emotional kids' feelings, kids, whatever, their experiences. I don't know, a lot of things can happen in a school, and then you go home and parents have to deal with situations. Sometimes they don't even know what they're dealing with when their students get upset, but I won't go into that.
Oh, we want them to know.
Well,
We don't want that to be
So then we
secret.
may.
So something will be sent out to the parents so that they know fully what this is, so
Now,
that they can.
yes, because we'll have to do some information. Keep in mind, I am telling you, this was a big deal with the teachers that they want this district looking at this. I'm only giving you the top 7. Nothing I'm giving you is something that I concocted by myself or that the admin team came up with. This is coming 100% from your teachers, and there were reps from every single building.
And that's fine, and we want teacher input, but the basic big decisions and the legal things come from the board, and we take their input and value teachers. They're on the front lines, they're working with our kids, but certain things are discussions of the full board with full board decisions, okay? Majority rules, I know very well how majority rules and how minorities don't, and whatever. So we might have to revise some of our policies about.
So what I'm envisioning also, members of the board, is that once the teachers have some time to talk with their own group within the building, we'll bring back some reps to this full board meeting, and they'll tell you what's happening in their building, how it's rolling out, any specific things that they're doing, so you can hear straight from the teachers of each building what's happening in each one of those buildings. But that'll be more like a September, maybe later September board meeting.
I think that'd be great. I look forward to that.
Okay.
Great.
That's it.
The only question I have, school resource officer, is there any chance?
I got bad news for you, Director Yuhan.
Yeah.
We've checked with our local law enforcement. They have a shortage of officers. And so neither Gilbert, Evelyn, or Virginia have an officer to spare so we will be starting without an official SRO.
Okay.
Is there a plan that maybe in the near future that could change or no?
Yes, if they're very willing, they want to work with us, they like the SRO concept, they're just down officers. So if they get the officer staffing, get fully staffed, then I think they'll be absolutely willing to talk to you about an SRO.
What about some private type of deal with a private individual?
Some schools do that.
Yeah.
They hire their own guard, basically.
Well,
Something that we probably should look at.
yeah, I think we should. Okay,
All right, we're good?
moving on.
Moving along, 6.2 is the budget, 24-25 budget information. That's
And members of the board, this is Andrea, who is going to tell you what you have. You have some 160 pages of budget information. Andrea will tell you what it is. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to suggest that maybe we set a separate work study session, and once you've had a chance to look at it, can send Andrea some questions that you specifically want to take a look at it, and we do it in that format. But if you want to talk about any of those areas right now, Andrea will do the best to answer any question you may have. But first, Andrea, what is the board looking at? What is this?
This document was requested and it was suggested then by ARC. I reached out to them for some advice of what to give to the board members. And this document shows our adopted 25 budget, which was approved at the June 24th meeting. You'll see a year-to-date column. Those are all zeros. We have an ENC column. Those are encumbrances. That means that they are currently already in our system, possibly to be paid or looking at to be paid in the remaining balance. I highly suggest that you look at the adopted 25 annual budget as you're reviewing this document. This document also shows all of the expenditure codes and the revenue codes for the entire district right now. And if you have any questions, if you could email them to me, and if we have a work session, then I'll get back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, Andrea, this is a lot of paper, and there are budgets, and these are our, every year we do a projected of what we want to spend in all these different categories, maybe based on what the costs were in previous years and everything. But I'm more interested in our revenues and our expenditures, what we budgeted and what we actually spent, throughout the years. And so we can see, I think there are even some reports, data reports at the state, where you can see they do the coding, and they get into more detail in the E4's coding thing, and you can see they compare 2 years. You can see if you've spent more or you've spent less, and those are the types of things I was more interested in as a whole board, so we could maybe take a look at specific categories, because like I say, this is what we budget. Spencer had given us something, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 categories that I had asked for, and he said, here's what we budgeted, but here we went over our budget here, and we went over way here, but we were under budget here. And those are the things I was trying to identify as a board that would be really useful in a deeper budget meetings like that.
So currently right now, we haven't sent in a close for our district, so our data, it's not audited or finalized, and journal entries haven't been made for those purposes yet for you.
But I was thinking we could look at the previous years that we audited, the books are closed, we've given all our reports to them. We might see trends, you know, we might see savings like Bill was talking about the other year. Probably gonna see some savings in money for maintenance, facilities and everything. Well, yeah, that's true, that's very true. We might have some savings, but now we've replaced them with other buildings and expenses. And so, and we've talked about maybe teachers on call, let's run a little comparison, or maybe even having our own lunch program or something like that. And we could probably see some trends, because we haven't been consolidated for that long. And I know we're getting more on our feet and getting used to our new district now.
Buildings and opening new ones,
And we could take some lessons from the former districts, from the Virginia and Evelyn district and Evelyn Gilbert district. So I hope that's the kind of working sessions we can have.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, 6.3 Treasurer's Report. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Director Culper-Dahl,
Second it.
second by Director Westby. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 7.1, staffing is, or who's talking about staffing?
Angie.
Angie, okay, we're doing principal, all right.
Laurentian first.
7.1 Laurentian staffing. I don't know if it's your principal.
Nope, it's
What do you want to do
principals.
about the staffing?
Or is this just informational, or
It's information only, but if I'm.
any questions for Angie? Well, as long as she's here and.
Is there any rhyme or reason to moving around people? Like, is it, do we go by seniority, or is it just kind of where you think people will best be, fit?
Well, we always look at seniority, we always look at best fit as well when we make those decisions. And with, trying to save the tenured teachers, this past year, making that switch to the early childhood, so there was, we had to make some movement from teachers that were in the classroom, we had to look at the licensure and make some tough decisions about who would be going to preschool.
Okay. So, making those tough decisions, do they get to provide input too, like the ones that are moving? Like, sometimes there's a volunteer that would like to switch things up and go to a different grade, or whatever the case may be. How much input?
Absolutely, when we were thinking that we were going to have to move some of our elementary classroom teachers to the preschool classrooms, all 3 elementary teachers went to those people that were licensed and asked them what their thoughts were. Would you voluntarily go to preschool? And told them a little bit about how a preschool schedule would look. So I know we all went to each one, seeing if there was anybody that would want to move.
And were they all wanting to move, or was there one that didn't want to move as much?
In my building, I had 3 and all 3 preferred not to move.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Thank you.
And then North Star staffing, all that information is there. Scott is here.
Yes, any questions?
I'm sure it's difficult decisions for you guys too, when it comes down to making decisions on who's moving where and things. It's probably not easy.
Yeah, and one of the things that we had to deal with is, in 5th grade, we went from 5 sections this year to 4 sections next year. So that means somebody in 5th grade. Well, if you have a great team that works well together, you don't want to split that team up. So maybe you move 2 people to a different grade, and then you look at different skill sets. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. But that's what North Star had, is our big one was we had to go from 5 sections to 4, which caused a lot of movement.
Scott. Parkview staffing, Sheena's here. Anything to add, Sheena?
What's that?
Anything to add about your staffing, or,
I don't have anything to add,
all right?
unless you guys have questions.
Any questions for Sheena? Let off the hook.
Yeah.
I was just interested though, like say in the elementary and then the high school too, all the elementaries. Comparison from last year to what is proposed for next year. And this is proposed for this year. So we can see what changes we've made and what we've cut and how we've moved things around. Like I can think of a couple of things, I mean, everybody's familiar with the Maxine thing, but I see Georgia F has got a different assignment where I think she was just an interventionist last year and now in a different building, and now she's assigned to Phi Ed. I mean, those are the types of differences I'd like to maybe be pointed out to us, because they're not always obvious. And then, you know, to kind of have a discussion of
I think there was some discussion though, about like, Georgia at a previous board meeting when we been discussing music and,
smart.
and smart.
Yeah.
It has come up.
Well, I know we didn't get into any detail about that though, but is it good to split somebody into three different scenarios for educational purposes when she was just an interventionist before? And I know we have just interventionists, you know, that work with kids, and then
Again, I feel like we have to trust in the people that we employ to make those decisions.
we're yet to talk about music and smart, so we can let that go for now, I guess, huh?
Yep.
Okay,
Coming up.
all right.
So 7.5, the high school staffing, Mark is here. He's standing up. Must have some to add.
Well, and obviously mine looks a whole lot different than the elementaries. I did provide 4 documents. We can use them how you like. One is the master schedule from last year, one's the master schedule from this year, which has the teachers on it and what they're actually teaching. The one document is the changes from last year to this year. The top group is those that are no longer with us. Next group are those that have changed. Then we got a group of new hires, and then the last 3 are for the ALP. The other document, which is lengthy, about 35 pages, runs through every section that is offered this year compared to every section that was offered last year. If you look from the left side of and this is the spreadsheet, the left side of the spreadsheet shows this year, the right side shows last year. And then if you page, everywhere you page down that you see a highlighted, that is where a change is. If it's yellow, it is the staffing change. If it is green, it's an actual course change. From staff no longer here to staff teaching a new course to enrollment numbers, all that information is there. Questions?
For Samantha Craig, was that replaced, that science?
No.
No. Is that a need, in her opinion, or?
We have, 7th, 8th, 9th grade science class sizes are in the 35s. They're large. It's no different than most of the other subject areas. It's getting up there where it's large, but again, one of the difficulties, it's hard to fix some of that when you may only need one section. You won't find a teacher to teach one section. And that's where it gets, when you start getting into those in-between section numbers. Do you have class sizes that are really small, or do you have ones that are really big and you just shuffle around? That's kind of a balancing act that we do.
And I appreciate your year-to-year comparison here, that's helpful to me. But on some of the other things were class sizes, and you mentioned one area, science. We've got biology and earth science and botany, 38, 37, 40, career explorations, 40.
Well, and I do want to, full disclosure, we are still adjusting all of those for this year. Counselors are working every day, filling holes, trying to balance some of those class sizes. So those numbers are pretty fluid for this year. We're adjusting as we go. But yeah, there are some that are going to be quite large.
Yeah, and that's hard, that's concerning, like with home ec, I know you don't call it home ec anymore, you have so many stations in science, and that to me is another important one too, you only have so many stations. When we had industrial tech, there were some classes that were so loaded, 40 in an industrial tech class, and so the the teacher had to take half of the class and they had to do seat work every other day and the other ones got hands-on and they got kind of discouraged by not, having the hands-on industrial tech courses. So class size really matters, especially if we're getting more in technology type classes. That's even more important to keep those class sizes and teacher ratios lower. Another one I see is English composition. Those are quite high. And that is pretty hard for a teacher to handle. Up in the 30s, 40 students, 38 or 39, but that's a lot of work in that area too. Not that it's just a lot of work, but that's pretty intensive, tests and assignments and compositions and things. So I don't know, what can we do to bring some of those class sizes down? I know it means hiring our Samantha Craig or to not replace her. That's having an effect on our science. What teachers have 5 assignments, so there's 5 classes that if we had one more science teacher, we could lower class sizes on. So I think we need to, as a board, take a look at what we can do, if we can do, and that it goes hand in hand with the budget. If we can find money in our budget that we're maybe overspending or we've got a little extra money here, we can make some of these additions. So they go hand in hand. And that's why I've been asking. I'm not just asking, to make a lot of work or to say I'm micromanaging as a board member, because that's what we should be doing, I think.
I do agree with you on the budget thing.
Yeah. Well, good, thanks.
Okay, any more questions from Mark?
Hopefully the board will be taking some more looks to see what we can do, even at the before school, but even at the very beginning. So if we make some changes and additions, then it's not going to be that disruptive.
Are these the final, or they're still adding, as the secretaries come back, I'm assuming they're still adding?
Yep. And they'll be dropping too, because Mark's got some kids in the classes who aren't coming back, but he doesn't know who they are. So there'll be some kids dropping too.
Sure.
It's going to take a while to shake out.
And then I forgot to ask Andrea, but it all belongs to here too. Please, can we get intervals or enrollment numbers throughout the month, throughout the school year? And we still don't know, and I pull out some stuff from the State Department, their data center, from consolidation and where we are and what grades. And if it's a senior high school and we're losing to open enrollment, we'll know what can we do to adjust that, get them back, whatever. But please keep us in enrollment, at least monthly.
And we have given you enrollment numbers, and I think tonight you have some enrollment numbers in addition to what the principals have talked about. And when we looked at the numbers on that, in the elementary, we looked back at Virginia numbers. We don't have Ellis Gilbert data on class sizes. In the elementary, the statistical class size that we have right now, this year coming up in the elementary, it is almost exactly the same as what it's been for the last 10 years plus going back in Virginia. And I'm going to guess Ellis Gilbert was probably almost the same way. So elementary class sizes they're good. They're about what they've been for the last decade plus here.
Class sizes or enrollment, or are you talking about both, class size and enrollment?
I'm not talking about only class size, number of kids in an elementary class that the teacher actually has.
Okay.
Yep. But we will get you those numbers. And we'll continue giving you those numbers.
Yeah, please, and in the same format, so we can see some trends and we can see historical data. And even if you just have to pull them off of MTE, I know other districts, I've watched other district board meetings in the board packets, almost every board meeting, but every month. They see the month before and the year before and beginning of school, what you ended up, the last day of school, October count. And that means money, that's budget too. And you're talking about, well, if we get more students, we'll be getting more money, more formula money. So it's good information.
Yep.
I agree, absolutely.
Okay, moving on. Admin items, 8.1, consider approval of the 2024-25 Rock Ridge Elementary Handbook.
Okay, I do have a question.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make.
I'll support.
Okay, motion by Ludwig, support by Colbert Dahl. Discussion.
I buried my book now, but the only thing that I was gonna say on the handbook and the phone policy, which is absolutely wonderful that we have it. But somebody talked to me about their child having to take their blood sugars with it. So can we have something in our policy, or is there something to?
Typically, like a student that is diabetic might have an IEP or a 504 plan, and they would be able to make those accommodations for them.
So the parent would have to fill out the 504 for that. There's
The what?
they would have to have a 504.
If they have a 504 plan, or if they're on an IEP, the parents would be a part of a meeting where that would be a discussion.
And if you could explain what a 504 plan is, I don't think everybody understands it.
Do you want to explain that?
Well, yes, a couple things. First of all, on something like this, the nurses work with the admin, with the teachers to make it as uncomplicated possible. So absolutely, yes, there's gonna be some kids who have permission to carry the phones with them because they have health reasons why they need it. That's an easy thing for us to do. On 504, all those are, what that means is non-special ed for kids who are struggling in one or more of life activities. And there's some criteria that are laid out. And it's very common for some of our students to ask for one, or parents ask for one, but it's not a given. So we have to have a meeting, we have teachers there, parents there, kids there, if it's an older kid. And then we talk about what the needs of the kids are, and we figure out, okay, do we need a plan? If the answer is yes, then we write what's called a 504 plan. And if the answer is no, then we work at something else through the school, through the student assistance team, or some other process and procedure.
To her point, Lisa's point, when my son was in school, backpacks weren't allowed in the classroom, but he needed to carry an EpiPen, and so we were the exception to the rule, and he was able to do that, no problem. They were great, but maybe it is beneficial just to have that little adage in the handbook saying, per nurse's approval for medical reasons, I guess, if you're worried about that, or, because not everybody, like, I never had, a plan, official plan.
And sometimes people don't have a 504 plan if
Right.
teachers and school staff are willing to make the accommodation.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a legal document.
I'm sure that
stating
most would be absolutely fine with it. I don't know
we
if
can
that's
add that,
important
yeah.
or not.
I mean, I'm just,
Just in simple
just would
sense.
like to have everybody on the same page, that's all.
Yeah,
So you
so it's
wouldn't
just-
get somebody, and I'd highly doubt it, but just to cover all bases.
I do think it would be like, with the nurse's permission or whatever, because we can't just have everyone saying, they have a medical reason.
We'll have
to carry
them
their cell
update
phone.
the high school and the elementary handbook with a sentence about that.
Okay, any more discussion on 8.1?
Just with understanding, by passing this, it can be massaged during the year, and even, we had so much to even review in this board packet that, it's with the understanding that something can come up and it's not in stone, okay?
Yes, you can review it and change it. The reason why we're bringing this to you now is so that teachers can go over it with all the kids when they show up. And that's why we want you to approve it now.
So moved, almost done.
All right,
We already did,
Oh, okay,
myself and.
yep.
all right.
No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. 8.2, consider approval of the 2024-25 Rock Ridge High School Handbook.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 8.3, consider approval of the resolution relating to the election of school board members and calling the school district general election.
So moved.
I support.
This is a roll call vote. Director Rudin?
Yes.
Director Lotiger?
Yes.
Director Yuanzi, yes. Director Colbert Dahl?
Yes.
Director Westby?
Lisa, or Lisa, yes.
Director Sorkin? All right, passes unanimously 6-0. 8.4, discussion and consideration of the SMART program for the 2024-25 school year.
I'll start off the discussion. I mean, I think with the conversation that we had, last week about buildings closing and, possibly having a reduction in some of our bills and things, and trying to adjust to make accommodations to keep these different programs, at least for another year. I'm open to doing that, and I know it's a little contradictory because I do respect the time and energy that the principals put into making these recommendations, because we did assign them a, you know, a budget that they had to work with, and I do appreciate what they've done. But from my point of view, one of the things that I ran for was to increase opportunities for kids. And if I didn't vote to have those two programs, I feel like I'd be contradicting what I set out to do by being on this board. So I do appreciate your time and energy, admin, in making the reductions, because we did set a budget for you to go by. But just personally, I feel like I have to support keeping the SMART program and doing what we need to do for the music program as well. For that reason, I want more opportunities for our kids, and not, it might be contradictory to what I tried to run by as well with listening to the recommendations that were being given, but that's important.
There's nothing.
Well, and I think it's important for me to mention and to say I do appreciate the time that they spend.
So I guess I'm a little different. I think everybody knows I really love the SMART program, and I really do have supported it. I think it's a really beneficial program. However, I know that budget, you know, it's really difficult right now, and I am not in the building, and you know, I leave it up to the admin to make those decisions, and I know that they want what's best for their particular buildings, and they're looking at the whole overview, and I just, for that reason, I probably am going to just not support the SMART program, and that really upsets me even to say that, because Maxine, I'll speak directly to you. I love you, and I think you're amazing, and I love the SMART program, but I'm just trying to think what's best for the district at this moment in time.
It's a tough decision.
It is a tough decision. My concern is that the training, I mean, we don't have anybody else that is trained. I think it's a great program. It's done well for my son. We don't have anybody that, you know, everybody else was let go, so that's the one that catches me, you know. I'd like to see it for one more year and have a plan going forward and see how it goes after that, I guess.
The question I have, Mr. Chair, is if we do have the SMART program again, will it be done in both buildings, Noel?
Well, regardless of what you tell me to do, we are gonna have a SMART program. It's not going away. It's just who's doing it. Whether you want one individual running everything, or if you want, it's still gonna happen. So.
Well, my question is if the board decides to have Maxine as full-time SMART, will she be doing it both at the?
We would like that to happen, yes.
And my concern about that is the feedback that I've gotten from teachers is there's a lot that they are expected to do, and it's just one more thing on their plate, and will it be done? And that's what concerns me.
And the feedback that I've gotten is that they're not gonna be able to do that SMART program in their classroom, like like you're suggesting. But
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
this is what happens all over the United States. I get it, I understand. So,
We may not be at that point yet, where the teachers are all fully trained to do it the way other schools do, okay? So we aren't there yet either. And maybe we'll get there, like John says, maybe a year, maybe two, but let's take it, a year, maybe we'll get there. We'll get to that point.
That's kind of my thought, is like, let's give it one more year, hoping that what we're saving is going to be able to fund those things. But over this year, I hope additional training is done.
Absolutely.
To ensure that we can move forward with the program without having one individual in charge of it.
So I feel like I've heard a little bit different information, because I heard that it is presently still being done. So and that the buildings are capable of doing it.
And I think
It's
I've heard
hard to know.
differing information too, just, one building may be doing it and another
Yeah.
building may not.
And for me, the bottom line is that I love the SMART program and I love that what you showed us here. I mean, that's hands down. I think we all agree on that. For me, the bottom line is staying within the budget. I mean, because, we can have holes in the boat. We've got a lot, we just have to fix those.
The budgets can be massaged. And there's a logistics too with this SMART program too. If we had a smart room where that stuff is all set up all the time, and then even if the teachers did do that, they go, it's set up, but it's not set up that way now. Teachers would have to set up their own equipment in different places and different times. Right now, we have one person doing it. She sets up and takes down, and I don't know. I don't even know if she has a room, and she has a room in a hallway or whatever. But and Maxine isn't full-time, so whatever I'm proposing, and I'll make that into a motion that whatever she is now, was it 3.8 or 3.1 or 0.3 something or other. She's not full-time, but we keep her at that same amount of FTE and run the program the same thing we did last year. I don't think the program's gonna be the same in each school if you take Maxine and divide her equally among the two sites. Because if it's two days in the Laurentian, and then it's 2.5 days, as we have it now, as I understand, in the Parkview, then she'll have 1 day here and 1 day there. It's still not gonna be the same program. So we do have somebody doing it 2.5 days over there. So at Parkview,
Yeah.
as I understand. So
No, not anymore.
not anymore? Well, then I guess that makes the scenario even worse then, because if we don't have that and we say 1 day over in Laurentian and 1 in Parkview, I don't know that the same number of students are gonna be served as well as this year. So would we have to reinstitute, that's a second problem, to reinstitute that 2.5 days at the Parkview with that person, or if they've moved on, or with some other person, or maybe we don't have a person well enough trained that person Parkview was, or is even around, so.
I wouldn't mind hearing from the principals, specifically Laurentian and Parkview.
I was gonna say the same. Angie, and I apologize for not calling you in advance to ask you, but are your teachers doing it as well, not just Maxine? Are the teachers?
What I know about the SMART program is, I've never been trained in it, but I know the first year that we moved in there, into Laurentian, over the summer, we did have teachers trained. And I don't remember which ones were trained to do in the classroom. I just remember Kim Wallner was definitely there and trained. So I do believe that we do have some staff that are trained in it, and it is a program that is implemented in the classroom, as far as I know. So teachers would do it in the classroom. But I can't speak on how many have been trained in my building. I don't know that.
Well, they have all the equipment in their classroom, though. If they do it in their classroom, she's got all kinds of balls and ramps and all kinds of things. How could they do it in their classroom? I don't understand it.
Well, I think they can use, we do have a designated SMART room. We do have the hallways that you can do it in, but just simple, the crossover that you would do for some of the SMART activities, it's not like you need equipment. You just need to stand up and move. So, but there's opportunities, I guess, at Laurentian.
Parkview's in a very different spot than Laurentian is because Parkview didn't have a Maxine. Maxine has always been at the Laurentian or the Franklin on the Lith Gilbert side. Last year, and I think I had explained a little bit in an email that we had a teacher where there was a little shift in job assignments and classes. So I ended up with a teacher that we did send to get trained, and that is why we had a SMART teacher. But I will tell you, prior to having Kylie Uncini as a SMART teacher, I have 2 rooms at the Parkview that are set up. One was set up by one of my special ed teachers. The other one was set up on the 2nd floor by my 2nd grade teachers. This year, the 2nd grade one fell through a little bit because of some personal things, but that SMART room in the back room has always been set up. I have multiple staff that are trained. They were trained not at this past one, some were, but at the one prior a few summers ago. So yes, I do have staff trained, and yes, they do use it in the classroom. I see it happening in the classroom, but I haven't had a Maxine, so we didn't have a choice. We do it in our classroom. The equipment that we have, if they want to use some of those balls or whatever you're referring to, they go to the one of the rooms that we do have set up, so. Like I said, very different scenario at Parkview than it is at Laurentian. The only students that were able to see SMART last year were our pre-K and kindergarten, some of our kindergarten students that were pulled in specific smaller groups, so.
I'll make that into a motion that, whatever Maxine's FTE was last year, that we reinstate that. And I guess I'll leave it at that because I don't know what to do about the lack of another person like that at the Parkview. So,
I think we need to ensure that over this year, people are trained, additional teachers are trained.
we've got staff,
And not
we don't have
just,
money.
you know, in the early childhood, but, you know, all the grades that are benefiting from SMART now, that there's teachers in varying grade levels that get training, so that maybe next year we can eliminate that position and have teachers doing it in the classroom or in a space as a rotation, along with, you know, music and.
So like, what are you saying? Like they would be sent to training or someone in the building or Maxine would train or
Whatever way that administration feels
I
appropriate.
think SMART requires training, not by
Official
somebody
training.
in-house, but official training. So we would have, I think we would have to go that.
Yeah, Maxine, she's not a trainer, I believe, in one of the previous meetings.
So I'll leave that as part A resolution. I don't even know if I'll go to a part B. I don't have a second yet.
Can you just say what your motion is?
To reinstate whatever FTE Maxine was as solely SMART, the same as we had last year. And I think to stay at the Laurentian, and if we can figure out something before the beginning of the year for the Parkview too, because I think that was another cut that we didn't realize. And so if we can work out something of the same as they had this year over there, because I don't think a day at Laurentian and a day at the Parkview is beneficial. Less kids are going to be served.
No, the same amount of kids will be served, but they'll be served in two different buildings.
Not necessarily, because there's only,
Well, if you do so many kids in building A twice a week, if you go to two different buildings, you're gonna do the same amount of kids.
I'm talking about in the same building, like the Laurentian kids. You can't serve as many kids in the Laurentian as you can, one day a week as you can.
My big concern, and it hasn't been answered, is for me to vote for this, she'd have to do both the elementaries, however it's divided up.
Well, that's not part of my resolution, so. And then I think we need to address it, and we need to find a replacement for what the Parkview had for this year. I think it's not good for the kids in the program to have one day here a week and one day over there a week.
I will support Polly's motion.
Thanks.
Any discussion?
Well, I think as what Tim said, I think if we're gonna have Maxine and she's the better deal at Laurentian, then it would seem that she would be the better deal at Parkview, sorry, and that she should go to both places.
But then Sheena, has already said that they are doing SMART already.
So under that scenario, you are reducing the program to serve two buildings instead of one. I'd be in favor of replacing the 2.5 days over at the Parkview
it's
too.
difficult.
That's not my motion now. Maybe we should talk about that in more detail another time, because I would make that motion right now and say,
We need
we're
two
gonna-
Maxines.
We're gonna find the money, I would say that, but I'm not sure that would fly tonight, but I'm willing to go there. and say, we'll find the money.
Personally, I couldn't support hiring another person. I mean, if we continue what we're currently doing with Maxine potentially doing some hours, or if Sheena is just, they're good over there with their teachers taking care of the SMART program and doing it on their own, I'm okay with that, but I couldn't get on board with hiring another person to do.
Well, that's why I left it at one part.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm just thinking in fairness, that's all.
I don't feel like it's cohesive, and that bothers me too.
It bothers me too, but it sounds as though they've got some, got it figured out over at Parkview. But my thought is that this year is a year for additional training and review it next year as a potential cut.
Review it, work it out.
I agree.
Yeah. And,
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-2. Okay. Discussion and consideration of the music program for the 24-25 school year.
On this one thing for the board to know is that we have posted for a .64 music position to take care of the issues in the elementary with the rotations. So I just want you to know that before you begin your discussion.
So that would be in addition to, so it's not really replacing, sorry. It's not really replacing Dan Melby's full-time position, it's a .64.
It is not.
So it's a little bit of a cut.
It is. Now, keep in mind, you had 2.5 million. I have to say this, you're spending money you don't have. And in the spring, if we don't get, our enrollment doesn't go up, then we'll be coming back and talking about, we'll just have to make the cuts to somewhere else. But yes, Director Lottie, you are right. This is not replacing the full 1.0, but the principals have met multiple times over this, multiple times, and they are telling me that this .64 will take care of any music rotation. Now, I'm not going to say everyone is going to agree with this, but it will take care of the vast number of difficulties that we're experiencing.
And what is the likelihood of finding a .64 candidate this late in the game?
Well, it's elementary, so that's a plus. We don't know.
Okay.
I haven't looked recently to see how many applicants we have.
Why don't we just wait and see?
I can support that, if it's a .64.
I'll make a
and they
motion
feel
that we
that's-
should go.
I think Sheena has something to,
Okay.
wants to
You
say.
got so many applicants.
One applicant? Okay.
.64. If it were more though, do you think if it were full-time that the person, there'd be more applicants than a partial, fractional? You don't know, we don't know. And
It's one half a dozen of another, it's pretty limiting.
No, you're right. And as I understand, Dan Melby wasn't full-time music. He had some kind of an exploration type of.
No, he was full-time. He was 1.0.
I just saw something.
Well, he was total FTE 1.0.
Yes, but not one FTE in music. He had a portion
That's
of
correct.
music and he wasn't full-time music. Okay. And so I'm concerned about not at least replacing his portion of music, because it doesn't sound like this .64 is going to even replace his music. Did he have 7th and 8th grade instrumental or band or something? But then he had some other kind of a know yourself or career exploration type of a duty, so it wasn't anything to do with music. And then I understand from all the conversation we had at the special meeting and some other letters that we got, that not only this replacement of Dan Melby's portion in music, we've also previously made a cut in music, in our full music program. So in the total music program, we have even more, we have even less, we had more of a cut than just this replacement. And every other day or every other week, and lessons and no lessons in the elementary. So this doesn't really solve, I think, the importance of the holes in our music program, or I should say of what we had and now what we've lost. I would personally want to get back to what we had in full, because even Julie said she thinks we could use, and it's not just her, she could have reasons, a 7, and she's recommending 6, but that's even as much as we should have if we wanted to run the good, solid program. So this isn't even going to give us 6 FTEs.
Well, my thoughts are, and I'll make a motion, and if it's seconded, is if we're out looking for a music teacher right now, we should just wait and see how that pans out till our next board meeting, and I'll make a motion that we just,
We can just take no action, that's the same.
Yeah.
well,
It
we
would
can
be-
take no action, or we can table it, and it'll come up at the next board meeting.
Table.
However,
Well, I can, if admin is recommending posting for the 0.64 and that would be 0.36 less than Dan Melby's position, I can get behind that because it's still a little bit of a cut, but it's still looking for somebody to fill a role within the music department. I support that.
Okay, so what are we doing?
I support just taking no action.
Yeah.
At this
We wouldn't have to take any
It failed
action,
for lack of a-
already, it's already,
right.
they're posting
Moving
already
on.
for 0.64.
All right. We are at 8.6, consider approval of purchase agreement for Jack Pine Ridge and Siegel Boulevard adjacent to or near the 1404 building.
Can you explain this in a couple of sentences?
I'd love to. So let me see if I can do it in a couple of sentences. You are buying the 1404 building. We believe we're going to close on Wednesday of this week. There are two parcels of land, one called Jack Pine Ridge, the other called Siegel Boulevard, that needed to be, and they were inadvertently not included in the first purchase agreement. Jack Pine Ridge is a chunk of land that's between here and the football field. It's a triangle. Siegel Boulevard, there used to be a road running between this building and the high school. But the high school didn't exist. There was technically a road there. So this clears all of that up and it allows you will own everything. There's no stray parcels that anybody else owns. So that's what you have 100 different reasons why you want to own these. And they were just inadvertently left off.
Just
So that's why
housekeeping.
it's coming to you.
I will make the motion.
Motion by Director Lotiger,
Support.
support by Reardon. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 5-1. Consider approval of facilities use agreement between the City of Virginia and Independent School District 2909 effective through March 31st, 2027.
I move to table. I don't quite understand it. I don't know if this went through a facilities committee or not, and I think we need some discussion about some of these things. It's totally different than the last one in some regards, and can we take it up another time and either have a committee meeting and then more discussion at the table?
I agree with that. Is that like, do we do a motion to table it or how
I
does
move
that
to
work?
table.
I'll support.
You're seconding?
Yeah.
Okay, a motion to table, Director Sorkin, support by Colbert Dahl. Any discussion?
Can you explain it more, Noel?
We have to have an agreement. This is an agreement that our activities director worked with the City of Virginia from, but I'm hearing that you want to wait, and so what I'll do is I'll bring Josh in and have him explain it, because he would have been the individual who specifically would have talked with the City of Virginia about
Do
it.
you want to put it on our activity committee's meeting tomorrow?
I think that would be a perfect item to talk about, John.
Agreed.
Okay. We'll talk about the committee meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We'll talk about it.
Activities or facilities, I mean, it's not necessarily activities, it's a contract for the facility.
This has typically come up on the activities
But it is
committee.
athletics.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, I
Look at
think, several other activities. All right,
I mean, I guess, yeah, I'd like to talk about it tomorrow.
all right,
Okay, so do we need to vote on it to table it?
No.
Okay.
all right.
No action.
Consider approval of activities director job description.
I make a motion.
Motion by Director Westby. Any support? I'll support that. Any discussion?
I was on the committee, I couldn't make the meeting, but I just assumed that both of these are what our activities director and community ed director, they've put down on paper what they do now. Basically, I mean, was it added to or massaged or changed any of their duties, basically?
No, you used to have a job description that had both were in one, so I pulled them apart, So there's 2 job descriptions, and then Josh gave me some additional things that he did, and I included those. That's why the activities is a little bit longer.
Okay, I just wanted to know how
Yep,
that,
and they both looked at them and said that this is what they do. They said they were accurate.
okay,
Any
good.
more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 8.9, consider approval of community ed director job description.
I make,
Support.
Director Lotter got the motion, Reardon got the support. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, passes unanimously. Consider approval of library media specialist K-12 job description.
so moved.
Motion by Lotiger,
Support.
support Reardon. Any discussion?
Yeah, and this one, I know we talked about this in a previous, personnel and something. The education and experience, now, we had talked and Brandy had suggested that it was preferred with a license or a specialist license, but now it says, it's a required licensure as a media specialist in the state of Minnesota is required. So does that override the sentence before? It says a degree in teaching or related field or equivalent combination of education and experience. So the requirement of the state of Minnesota just overrides that first sentence. If it's required, it's required, and that's what I had all.
Right, but your job description, that's the one we would use. The state of Minnesota might have lower levels of requirements, but you can set higher standards. And when we looked at this and the committee looked at this, I'm just suggesting we have teachers licensed and everything else. Why wouldn't we at least look for someone who's licensed? But you can do what you want to do.
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that the state requirement is higher, is a higher whatever than the school district job description.
Then a license?
It says they must be licensed, is a library media specialist required. Okay,
What does it take
that's
to
a
get
higher
a
level.
license?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we need? The bachelor's degree in teaching, related field, or equivalent combination of education and experience.
So it's, they need
That's-
they need the license,
Huh.
but the state of Minnesota, they need the license. That's the way the job description is written right now.
I know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Just
So
that-
basically what I think, the way I understand it, Polly,
Yeah.
is that the library media specialist position needs to have that licensure as well as licensure as a teacher
But does
or an
to
education.
be a media specialist, don't you have to have the previous license, and it's more like a master's degree? So you have to
No.
have the bachelor's before?
No, you don't.
You don't?
I don't think so, because a librarian could, work at the public library and doesn't need to be having an education license.
So then we're adding on the teaching part of it. Okay, I get it now. No, that's good. I guess
Okay.
I do prefer that. Mhm.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Consider approval of the income contract between ISD 2909 and Minnesota North College for post-secondary enrollment options for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Reardon, support by Colbert Dahl. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Consider agreement between St. Louis County and Rockridge Public Schools for the transportation of children and youth in foster care placement effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
26.
Oh, 26. Gotta get stronger cheaters.
I will move.
Motion by Colbert Dahl, support by Lotiger. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. Has this been an ongoing thing? Have we always been doing this? And what is this all about exactly?
You have been doing this for many, many
That's what I
years.
figured.
It's just, you just don't know about this when it happens. Say a kid needs to go into foster care for whatever reason, the way the rules are written, if it's a Rockridge student, the kid could be placed temporarily at a location outside the Rockridge boundaries, but we are still obligated to provide the education. So that means there has to be a transportation arrangement so the kid comes back, because they want to minimize disruptions as much as possible.
Okay, I figured that's what it was, but I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Meeting announcements. Grand opening of the North Star Elementary is scheduled for Thursday, August 22nd, beginning at 4:30. Next regular meeting is Monday, August 26th, 6 o'clock at the Rock Ridge Admin Building. Adjourn, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Can we just say that tomorrow's the deadline for applications for school candidacy, school board candidacy?
You sure can say that.
5 PM is the deadline tomorrow. In your application for
They'll be
school
coming
board
in
candidate.
droves, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Get a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
I'll support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.